Hello everyone, glad to have you back. It feels like I talk about custom machines every few videos now, but don't worry, today's video is not about this topic. Today I will focus on something a little different. We already know there are over 15,000 different combinations of machines one could build, but there are a few that are a bit more special. Out of all the possible combinations, there are 77 that result in a machine with a unique name. By creating any custom machine, you generate a name based on the parts used. Some machines generate a name which uses different words than the part's actual names. That is because each part seems to have a hidden name which is similar to its visible name. Anyway, let us focus on the 77 machines with special names. But one last thing before I get into the machines. I usually put timestamps in the descriptions of my videos to create chapters, but with 77 machines plus the intro and outro, this video would have 79 chapters, which is just ridiculous. I will try to create some chapters, but as of writing and recording this text, I don't know how I will do it. I will go through all machines in alphabetical order, since that seems to be the only order that really makes sense. If I don't mention anything else, I tested every machine on max speed settings. Also, don't be surprised if you see the same few tracks multiple times. I picked these because, in my opinion, they offer many different things like wide turns, 90-degree turns, long straights, jumps and boost pads. Most of the things you will encounter on other tracks as well, but here they are all combined into one track, making testing a lot faster and easier. Keep in mind that I'm only talking about normal gameplay without any advanced techniques, so no MTSing, snaking or anything like that. I'm simply not experienced enough with that to tell you how good a machine is compared to others. We are already starting off with quite a good machine. The Alexander performs pretty good actually. It loses grip a little too easy for my taste, but apart from that, it's not bad. I think this is a great machine for anyone really. Good in every category, and if you like machines that slide a little bit, you are going to absolutely love this one. The Elmer Guest isn't that great. As I already explained in past videos, there are some parts that make it difficult to build a good machine, and this is no exception. The grand bass isn't a good part to begin with, and here it really doesn't shine. It isn't as bad as it could be, but it could also be a lot better. The machine is usable, but there are so many better options out there. Apart from its bad acceleration, the Aqua Griffin is a very good machine in my opinion. High top speed combined with amazing grip that can still be lost very easily if you know how, make this machine amazing. Surprising because it uses the Devilfish RX, which is a part that I couldn't really use in any machine before. I highly recommend you to check this one out. It surely beats many of the other machines. This really isn't a machine you should build. On max speed it really struggles with turns, and even when it's closer to acceleration it still doesn't perform well. Sure, it is usable, but it really hasn't got anything going for it. Except the fact that it kinda looks like a scorpion, I guess. I had high hopes for this one, but I was sadly disappointed. The Bahamut isn't bad, it just isn't good. It's slower than many other machines, and it also becomes hard to control at higher speeds. In general, it is alright, but I personally wouldn't use it. Despite using the grand bass body part, this is another alright machine. It takes some time getting used to it, but once you do, it isn't that bad. Surely you could do better, but this one is okay. Will I use it on master difficulty? Probably not. A bit too inconsistent for me, but give it a try. Maybe you like how it performs. In theory, this machine doesn't look too bad, but I personally do not like it. It slides too easily, and even though you can control it, it just isn't something that I really enjoy. If you like this kind of machine, then I'm sure you will enjoy this one as well, since its other stats aren't bad either. Don't let different parts fool you. This is basically a reskinned Air Emperor V2. Okay, it isn't that bad, but it isn't much better either. It suffers from the same problem as the Air Emperor V2, it can't take corners very well. If you really want to use this one, I recommend you set it to max acceleration. It isn't much better than max speed, but it loses grip a bit easier that way, but I don't think it's worth going through that anyway, since the big ace is trash. Even though this machine has amazing handling, I still wouldn't recommend it. It's on the slower side and has a very weak booster. You really have to collect every boost pad and spam the booster to continue going fast, since it loses speed very quickly, and with the already mentioned low top speed, it isn't that good. It isn't bad, not at all, but in a game where you have to go fast, some machines aren't really good. I could pretty much copy what I said about Beat the Beast here. It feels very similar and doesn't really do anything different. I don't really like it, but it's usable. The Blue Undyne is pretty much a worse version of the Bird of Paradise. It has the same problem of being quite slow, but this adds worse handling into the mix. If you want to use a machine like this, stick to the Bird of Paradise. If you took the handling of Beat the Beast or Blue Streak and added low top speed and an incredibly weak booster, you would get this. The carbuncle is just bad in every aspect. Don't use this one. It's honestly a shame, since I kinda like its design. Yet another machine with a weak boost and low top speed, but this time it actually handles alright. The Centaurus is another machine which I wouldn't really recommend for anything harder than Expert, since it's most likely going to struggle with its lower top speed, but I think a skilled player can use it on Master difficulty as well. The Chrono Symphony is so close to being an amazing machine. It feels great, but there is one major flaw that keeps it from S tier. Low top speed. It seems to be one of the slowest machines in general, barely getting above 1000 km per hour. This is actually a bit sad because I really like how this machine feels. Of course it can be used, but you are just going to limit yourself by using a machine with the same top speed as the Silver Rat. We have been through some machines now, and I think you are going to be able to predict how some machines are going to perform simply by looking at the parts. The Crazy Minotaur is very similar to the Chrono Symphony. They both share the same booster part, which is part of the reason why both are so slow. This one manages to be even slower though. It beats some other machines because it performs well everywhere else, but low top speed just isn't very good. The last time I talked about custom machines, I already mentioned how difficult it is to build an acceptable machine using the Big Tyrant. This one may be one of the few usable ones. It's still bad, don't get me wrong, but it can complete a clean lap and it only gets better once you start boosting. Still, the Big Tyrant is just very limiting and usually results in a machine with below average performance. Change the cockpit of the Curio Rider and you get this, and to be honest, don't even bother using this one on max speed. I'm sure you can imagine why. On max acceleration it isn't that bad. Still, there are so many better options out there, so why would you ever use the Desert Camel? This is another machine where I highly recommend using the setting closer to max acceleration. Like others, this one can take corners very well, and while max acceleration makes it easier, it still isn't good enough to be worth using. The Dragoon is a weird machine. It has weak acceleration, low top speed, and it loses grip as soon as you even think about turning, but it isn't that bad. It keeps its speed a lot better than other slow machines, so as soon as you get to lap 2 it is kinda okay. It still isn't a good machine because it takes some skill to use it properly, but I personally kinda like it. Weird, because I tend to dislike machines that slide that much. This is a very good machine. It may not look like it, but the Eldorado is fun to use. Good booster, acceptable handling, and the ability to lose grip if you want to. Most of the time. So far, this is one of the best machines on the list. Try it out for yourself. The Eliminator is another great machine with minor drawbacks. A high top speed, a good booster alone put it high on the list. Combine that with the ability to take pretty much any corner without major issues and you get a great machine. I only have small problems with its weak acceleration and it sometimes loses grip when you don't want it to. Apart from that, it is pretty good. Yet again, a machine with very low top speed. I believe this is the slowest one so far, barely getting above 1000 km per hour. It also has a non-existent booster, so even if you spam it, you won't be very fast for very long. It has great handling though, and it keeps its grip even while boosting, so that's something positive, I guess. The Enigma is average at best. It has nothing unique going for it. Many machines are gonna be better than this, but there are also a ton which are worse. I guess that's the definition of average. It's got time similar to the Eldorado, but I didn't try it as much as the Eldorado. Still, not that bad. Once again, we have a machine I really like. Despite sliding a bit too much, it's still very enjoyable. You can control it pretty well, even at higher speeds. This is one of the best machines so far. Maybe even the best? I really recommend you to try it out for yourself. You may need some practice, but once you know how to use it, it's great. The Fantasista is also an above average machine. It does all the right things, but it really doesn't excel anywhere. No major negatives or positives. It has good top speed, but that's really it. Slow, weak booster, and a lot of sliding. You have heard it all by now. Nothing original, just a bad combination. Don't use it if you're not into that kind of machine. There are so many better options out there, this just doesn't have any redeeming qualities in my eyes. We only add a single letter to the previous machine's name and we get something completely different. The final revolution is the complete opposite of the final evolution. Does that make it any better? A little bit. It's hard to use since it seems very inconsistent when it loses grip. When you boost it's easier to control, but the first lap is going to be rather difficult. It's a bit better when you aren't on max speed, but then you lose, well, the speed. Still better than the previous machine, but beating something bad doesn't mean it's good. The fireball is... no, not this one. That's better. The fireball sadly isn't as good as the other machine with the same name. I know I'm comparing GX and maximum velocity, but when will I ever talk about maximum velocity? Anyway, this is yet another bad machine. It managed to perform even worse than some other bad ones we had so far, so stay very far away from it. I feel like I am repeating the same few things over and over again. Just by the gameplay alone, you can imagine what I'm about to say. I know it gets old saying the same things every few seconds, but that's just how it is. Let's move on. The gargoyle doesn't make sense. You see, it isn't fast. Booster is below average and it doesn't slide a lot. I'd rank it below average, but I managed to beat the Fantasisters time on this track and I ranked the Fantasista above average. So where does this machine land? I can't tell you. I enjoyed using it even though it isn't very fast. It's unlike other slow machines because it does have a lot of grip. Surprisingly, I kinda recommend this one. The Gladiator is absolutely amazing. One of the best custom machines I've ever used. It really does everything right. It just feels so good. You can take corners very fast and not lose any speed. It has great top speed without boosting. It only really loses grip when you want it to lose it. It's amazing in every way. I absolutely love it. The best one so far in my opinion. This is another one of those machines that just struggles too much with corners. If you set it closer to a center or max acceleration, it gets a little bit better, but it still sucks a lot. Personally, I wouldn't even bother with this one. It's so not worth it. The ground wave is another one of those machines that I just want to be better. It generally feels nice to use with its great handling and easily controllable sliding, but once again it is one machine that is very limited by its low top speed. It isn't that bad, but using it is more of a challenge than some other machines. First of all, we are all grown up. There's nothing funny about the name Hard Banger. Anyway, apart from having the absolute best name in F-Zero, it also is a great machine. It isn't easy to use, but once you learn how to do it, it's very good. There's a choke in there somewhere. Very high top speed, amazing booster, and it can take corners pretty well if you know how. It's so good that it's even used in some max speed speedruns, but I suspect that's mainly because it is kinda funny to read the words Hard Banger on the leaderboard. Even though it handles pretty well, this machine is just too slow to compete. Even while spamming the booster, it just loses too much speed. It's a bit disappointing since it manages to handle well, similar to the ground wave, which I kinda enjoyed. This is the second time we see the Space Cancer body part on this list. I mentioned that because this machine has the same exact problem as the other one, the Astro Scorpion. I recommend using it closer to max acceleration to be able to take turns, but only if you really want to use this for some reason. I managed to get a time very similar to the Astro Scorpion on this track, so it isn't very good. Alright, just imagine how this machine performs. Nope, it's worse. Even on max acceleration it doesn't work well. Pretty much another air per V2. Don't waste the time with it, it's absolute garbage. Heavy and surprisingly very slow. Also one that struggles with corners, but when I set it to 50% or below, it's usable enough. The hippopotamus still isn't that good, even when it can take corners. It kinda keeps its speed reasonably well, and it's quite heavy, which can be good, but that's the only good thing about it. When it just comes to handling, this machine is one of my favorites so far. It also has an acceptable booster, but below average acceleration, and the fact that it struggles to even reach 1000 km per hour is just a total no-go. I thought some other machines on this list were slow, but this manages to be even slower. It's okay while boosting, so on tracks where you can spam and refill your booster a lot, it's alright, but everywhere else it's a joke. Even the Silver Red is faster, and that is kinda sad. Pretty good, a bit on the slower side, but other than that it's nice. Even though it slides a lot, you can still control it very easily. Boost is alright, but this is just another average machine with no major positives or negatives. The name alone pretty much tells the whole story. This is another machine that barely reaches the 1000 km per hour mark, too slow to be useful for most, if not all situations. Despite handling very well, this is yet another machine that just isn't worth using because of its unbelievably low top speed. It performs very similar to the Icarus Wing or Dragoon, which are also very slow machines. I personally think this one handles better though. I am pleasantly surprised with this one. I expected another Air Emperor 2 variant, but no. This is very different. The King Neptune is a machine I highly recommend. It can sometimes be difficult to lose grip at lower speeds, but 95% of the time you will be fast enough to not have any problems with it. This certainly is one of the best machines on the list. Very good, I like it a lot. And of course, we go right back to garbage. This machine could have been so good if it used a different booster part. I know, I mentioned it before, but I will tell you about it again. Red Sniper FX. Weird stats, but a machine that's just very nice to use. Just change the booster parts and you go from trash to something very enjoyable. Slow, but good handling. Nothing we haven't seen before. It's pretty much a better version of the Chunk Rider, but beating that doesn't say anything. It's quite slow and doesn't really handle that well. I still managed to get a time similar to some better machines. I still wouldn't consider using this one except you are looking for a good challenge. The long shot is difficult to use. It isn't bad compared to some other machines. It doesn't lose grip without boosting, and even with boosting it struggles with tight turns. It also doesn't have good top speed, but for whatever reason I kinda don't dislike it as much as some others. I was prepared for the worst when I saw yet another machine using the Big Tyrant, but let me tell you something. I actually like this one. The Mammoth Impact manages to be a good machine with the Big Tyrant body part. Yes, of course it struggles with corners, but as soon as you go above its usual top speed it loses grip and can take 90-degree turns with ease. It also kinda keeps its speed well, which is nice. I'm not gonna call it good because that would be an insult to the really good machines, but when it comes to machines with the Big Tyrant, this is one of, if not the best I've ever used. Check it out for yourself. You will be surprised. Definitely one of the better machines so far. It's kind of a little bit difficult getting around tight corners, but it's still doable even on max speed, and if you change the settings around a little bit, it just gets better. Top speed and boost are excellent, pretty good machine in my opinion. The Muscle Empress is just like many other machines using the Big Tyrant. Hard around corners on max speed, it also has quite a lot of top speed. Using it on max acceleration is kinda acceptable, but not good. Usually, I would have said it was expected for a machine with this body part, but after seeing the Mammoth Impact, I now have an example of a machine that can work well with the Big Tyrant. The parts alone gave me the suspicion that this machine is gonna be bad, and I was right. Kinda. On max speed, it is unusable. Good on tracks where I don't have to steer, but that's really it. But once you set it to max acceleration, this machine is surprisingly good. It takes some practice, but once you know how to use it properly, it's fun to use. It has a high top speed, even at max acceleration, but that has to be expected when you combine a heavy machine with the Thunderbolt V2. It also keeps the speed very well, so you don't have to spam your boost that much. Weird handling and low top speed aren't a great combination. It surely is usable, but it simply can't compete with other machines we've seen so far. Below average, for sure. The Outrider is very slow. Another one of those that just barely gets above 1000 km per hour. But it handles well. Would you believe it got a faster time than the Eliminator and Ground Wave on this track? Weird since it's so slow. I think it's probably due to my gameplay improving with machines like this and not because of the Outrider's performance, but who knows. I would have told you that this machine is absolute trash for the reasons you already know about. Slow, too much sliding, weak booster and all that, but there's one important thing you gotta know. I actually use this machine sometimes. For normal gameplay this is garbage, but when it comes to space flying, this machine is very good at that. I'm aware there are many other machines that can do it, but I personally like using the papercraft. I know advanced tech, not important here, I just wanted to mention it so you understand why I'm not calling this machine trash. Biased? Maybe, but I just like this one for this very specific use case. Despite it being slow and sliding like crazy, I managed to get the second fastest time on this track so far. Slower than the Gargoyle and beating things like the Fantasista and Masterwork. That is probably due to my pretty good lap too. Anyway, this machine isn't anything new. I kinda feel like it jumps a lot higher and stays in the air longer than many others, but I'm not too sure about that. The usual heavy machine with high top speed and no handling. Use the max acceleration if you have to. Not much I can say about this one since we have had so many machines like this one so far. Sadly another machine that is on the slower side, but its handling is quite nice. I kinda enjoyed using this one, even though I tried my best, I still got a slow time. Even slower than some bad machines, so I'm a bit disappointed. Surprisingly good. Even with its low top speed, it managed to perform a lot better than other machines like the Ground Wave or Eliminator. Pretty enjoyable in my opinion. Consider using this one. The red salamander feels almost identical to the Queen Sapphire. I don't have much to say about this one. Choose this or the Queen Sapphire, whichever you like more aesthetically. The Salvation is absolutely amazing. I love everything about it. A very high top speed, good handling and a great booster. It also finally managed to beat the Alexander's time, which was at number 1 since the very beginning. It performs very good, beats many standard machines, and it also looks quite nice. And honestly, its performance is a bit surprising since it uses parts which I would personally consider as average at best. In theory, this would be a decent machine, but in practice it really isn't. High top speed and a good booster aren't that useful if the handling is inconsistent. Maybe it's a skill issue, but sometimes I wasn't able to lose grip with this one. It's weird since it can do it, and when it does, it's very good at it. But sometimes it just doesn't want to, even while boosting, so I can't really recommend this one. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, maybe the machine itself is weird, I don't really know. The gameplay speaks for itself. There's nothing new I can tell you about this one. It has good handling, but that's everything it has going for it. Do I have to say it? Fine, low top speed, good handling, could be better, could be worse, only use it if you want to handicap yourself. I kinda knew this machine wouldn't be very good from the parts alone, especially the Blaster X boost part. From my own testing for other videos, I always noticed that machines using the part perform rather poorly. This one is no exception. Surprisingly, another machine that doesn't perform that bad, even though it uses the big tyrant. On 100% max speeds, it's bad, but once you set it to around 75%, it becomes very usable. Not as good as the Mammoth Impact, but still alright. Another machine that proves that the big tyrant can be quite good if used correctly. It's nowhere near the really good machines with its time on this track, but generally, this is average. Maybe slightly above that even. I was kinda excited for this one, but sadly I was disappointed. It has great top speed and an amazing booster, but it just doesn't lose grip without boosting. If you are boosting, it can slide too much, making it a bit difficult to control. It's a good machine, don't get me wrong, just not one I really like using. I managed to get the second fastest time on this track so far, only behind the King Neptune, which is similar, but just a little bit better in my opinion. So many machines on this list are so similar. This is yet another one out of the slow but good handling category. In that category, it is one of the best, but in general, it isn't that good. And we are back at the average big tyrant machine. Use this one at or near max acceleration if you enjoy taking turns without spamming side attacks. Absolutely not worth it. Stick to the Mammoth Impact or Sock Dodger. Remember what I said about the Blaster X a few moments ago? The same applies here. This machine is worse though, since it also struggles a lot with turns. Even when holding down L and R and steering, its turning radius is very wide and it just makes it unusable in my opinion. Combine that with a slow top speed and you have absolutely nothing positive. The Thunderstorm is a very good machine. Doesn't really lose grip if you don't want it to, average booster, but the slow top speed kinda limits its potential. It's still usable and quite fun in my opinion. Check it out, it's one of the better ones even though it is on the slower side. The Trailblazer is just a Leviathan with better handling. It's still slow, has a weak booster, and I will say it again, Dread Sniper FX. It's just so much better in every way. Literally, the Splash Mermaid with a different body part feels the exact same. Moving on. Slightly below average, pretty good while boosting, and the handling is one of the best, but I am sure you guessed it already. It sadly is slow. Still managed to get an acceptable time on this track though. Even though the Turbulence is part of the low top speed group, this one is actually alright. It may be one of the best in that category. Still nothing too special, but I recommend you to try this one. I kinda enjoyed it. Believe it or not, but this machine is surprisingly good. I got a time just 1.6 seconds behind the Eldorado, which is a machine I really liked. It feels a little unusual, but after a lap I got comfortable and it's fun to use. Highly recommend. Another very good machine, the Vanguard performs exceptionally well. Only slightly behind the King Neptune on this track, but I think they are on the same level. If you know your custom machines, you probably noticed that this machine looks very similar to the Tornado Condor V2, which is my favorite custom machine. And despite being so similar, the Vanguard is absolute trash at snaking. I know, advanced tech, but I just wanted to mention it. And now we are at the final machine, the White Sylph. Is it good? No, not sure. I managed to get the best time by 3 seconds on this track. I even beat the staff ghost, but I just think it's because I'm getting quite consistent at the jumps. I don't think this machine is gonna perform well anywhere else. Is this a good machine to end on? I don't know. I'm happy with this conclusion, I guess. And well, that is it. All 77 named custom machines. But before I go to the conclusion, I want to talk about one more thing. You probably noticed that some parts have been used more often than others, and I was curious to figure out which body, cockpit and boost have been used the most to build the average machine out of those 77. These are the top 3 of each category. Some parts have been used in the same number of machines, so they share the same spot. Thankfully, the number 1 spots are just taken up by a single part in each category, so we can build the average machine without any problems. Big Tyrant, Rave Drifter and Bazooka YS, and well, that's just the high roller. I don't know what I was expecting, but it surely wasn't this. Interesting, maybe average when it comes to the parts, but not when it comes to performance. Still, interesting to see which parts have been used more than others. Sad that it's mostly bad ones. Now it's time for a conclusion. I know very well that my testing is not perfect. I randomly picked these few tracks and only used each machine 2 to 5 times, which isn't a lot, but if I did more, this video wouldn't be done yet. I also only did max speed for the most part, and I didn't focus on advanced tech like snaking, MTSing, space flying and all that. This is meant to be a more casual approach. Before I leave, I quickly want to mention my favorites out of them all. They aren't necessarily the 5 best ones. They are the 5 machines I personally enjoyed the most and the ones I recommend the most. Give them a try and see if you like them. I shouldn't like this one, but for some reason I do. Maybe it's because I love how it looks, maybe I just got a run I liked and I'm biased, I really don't know. It's a challenge to use for sure, but I think it's worth it. I feel like the Alexander is one of those machines that anyone can pick up and use effectively. It's very forgiving and has no major downsides. A bit too much sliding for my playstyle, but I think most people won't have a problem with it. It's quite fast, good booster, acceptable handling, just overall a great machine. I really only want you to check this one out because it is one of the very few machines that performs well even though it uses the Big Tyrant. Like I said before, it isn't amazing, but it surprised me and I liked using it. It's unique and a bit different and fun. It's a weird choice for sure, but you just gotta try it out for yourself. You are going to be surprised. Like I already mentioned before, I like the Salvation. It does everything I want from a good machine. It's obviously not gonna set any new records, but for normal gameplay this is a lot of fun. I would almost call it perfect, but there is one little thing that keeps it from being that, and that's also why it's just at number 2. What a surprise, the Gladiator is at number 1. I already said everything I needed to say. I personally think it's a bit smoother around corners than the Salvation, so that's why this one's at number 1. I love using this machine and I actually beat every Carbon Master while working on this video because I just like it that much. Try it out for yourself. If I only have to recommend a single custom machine, it would be this one. It is that good. Does it beat the Tornado Condor V2 as my all-time favorite custom machine? No. They're just too different and I use them in different situations. As a max speed machine though, yes, absolutely. And that's really it. Everything I wanted to say. Remember when I said I'm going to make shorter videos to focus more on Overwatch 2? Yeah. But I promise the next one is going to be short. I want to keep December simple. Anyway, I hope you liked this one. I really enjoyed playing around with so many different machines. If you want more custom machine content, I recommend checking out these videos where we have been searching for the worst custom machines if you haven't seen them yet. As always, I will see you all next month. Have a good one. Bye. And before anyone says something, Yes, I know about ALttP, and I will make a video about it once it releases. Yes, I know the demo is interesting, but there just isn't enough content to make a proper video about it. When it releases, I will make a long video about it. I promise.